Hello everyone! In my last video on Ecocide in Albania, I was mentioning that there is an already existing body of academic literature and other studies available for those who are interested in knowing more on environmental issues in Albania. One of these studies is a study by the Westminster Foundation for Democracy in cooperation with Eco Albania and the UK government. The study is titled Mapping of Environmental Issues Along the Albanian Coast. And for me, it has really helped with identifying which are the most prevalent issues, where are they happening, and who is contributing to them. So right off the bat, the study identifies 5 main problematics across the Albanian shores: urban waste and wastewater, biodiversity loss, pollution due to portual and marine activities, risks of erosion and floods in the region, and also problems due to the regional developments across the shores. So let's start talking about these problems. I won't go one by one because a lot of them are also intertwined with one another, but rather discuss them in a more intertwined basis as they are. So when we are talking about urban waste and wastewater, it's what I was also mentioning in my previous video. In the last decades in Albania, development has been the subject of every sentence, every investment, and every effort. Surely, I mean, not in absolute terms, but you get the idea. So because of that, now we have a population that is rather urban, a lot of urban centers, which means more production, more consumption, but at the same time, no waste management systems to account for what comes out of this consumption. And a lot of the waste then is dumped into illegal landfills, into river streams, and also then directly to the Adriatic or the Ionian Sea. So where this problem is more urgent and also more prevalent, it's in the administrative unit of Durrës. And that is because there are 3 river deltas in Durrës. More specifically, I also have a map today to help with visualizing. The Durrës region is located in the western part of Albania, and there is 3 rivers flowing directly to the sea here. There is the river Ishmi with a delta right here at the Cape of Rodon. There is the river Erzeni with a delta a little bit more on the southern part at Sectori Rinia. And then there's also the river Shkumbin in the southern part of Durrës. So there's of course other rivers flowing to the sea in Albania, but these 3 are the most polluted. And at the same time, the Ishmi River, it's one of the most polluted rivers in Europe. And in case you cannot imagine that for yourself, there is a lot of pictures available on my profiles to help you with understanding the gravity of the situation. Now, another element of pollution in the coastal region is that of sewage. Because there have been so many developments in real estate, be it for normal use by the citizens or also for touristic purposes with the rise of Airbnb and Booking.com, and also there is a lot of new resorts being built due to money laundering. There is not a lot of effort being put into creating proper sewage systems. Continuously, of course, there have been projects. Some of these projects have succeeded, but not every entity along the shore contributes to cleaner waters in the sewage systems, or also to sewage systems that properly function. So what happens is that some of the sewage is still dumped directly to the sea. It's unfortunate to be talking about this at the time that we're living in, but this is the reality of the situation. So to move on from this problematic to that of portual pollution. Albania has a couple of ports, with the main ones being that of Durrës and that of Vlora. Now there is a lot of ships coming to and going away from Albania on a daily basis, and therefore there is also a lot of hydrocarbon waste. And in Albania, the hydrocarbon waste comes from oil spillages from these ships. And I don't have a biology background, but I started researching a bit on, okay, what does hydrocarbon waste do to an ecosystem. And I found out that it's surely detrimental for fish, for bird eggs, and it also makes birds and their feathers lose a lot of their water insulating properties. So I mean, the more you read, the more you can dive into the topic as well from a biological viewpoint. But surely, of course, because then this hydrocarbon waste is inhaled by the fish, it can eventually also end up in the body of a human, because being a coastal place, a lot of the people are consumers of fish. So then at times it might happen that they consume fish that has inhaled some of this hydrocarbon waste in the sea. Another, since we are on the topic of fish, there's also overfishing happening in these regions, because Albania is part of the Mediterranean. And I've always said, in my opinion, that the Mediterranean suffers from the tragedy of the commons. It's a small portion of the sea, very secluded, very isolated, with a lot of neighboring countries that have very developed fishing industries for centuries. So continuously, the Adriatic Sea and the Ionian Sea have been prone to being overfished. So that is also happening in Albania. And in the meantime, at times to counter this, but also at times because eventually such things also get developed in economies where fishing is important, aquaculture has been very developed in Albania throughout the last decades. But to make sure that the fish grows and grows well, at times antibiotics are used. And they're also used to make sure that there is no sicknesses, or in case that there are sicknesses, to cure them. But then these antibiotics end up in the environment due to the fecal matters of the fish. And of course, when you have an aquaculture farm with a lot of fish there, also the fecal matter that themselves become quite problematic for the environment around, as they disrupt the ecological balances, let's say. In Leja as well, in the lagoon of Talevain, we call it right here, there is another interesting phenomenon that is happening, and that is that of the blue crab. I read about this for the first time in the study. And the blue crab is a species that is not native to Albania. It has come to Albania potentially through a ship. Nobody knows which ship, nobody knows when it happened. But it has become an invasive species. And of course it has disrupted the environment there. So it's also quite interesting to see how in a more globalized world, let's say, when goods and people and also species are moving from one place to the other, then you also have phenomena like this happening. And maybe to also move on to the last topic of the video, that of erosion. And I would like to focus on two aspects of erosion. That happening due to deforestation, and that happening also naturally, but then people failing to forecast or to put importance on historical events. On the latter case, in the region of Durrës, where I'm from as well, there is a lot of clay hills. So, of course, clay, it's an element that is very prone to erosion. And now there is in some areas, because the hills are very beautiful, and of course you get beautiful views when you have a house right on top of it, but that doesn't mean that it's a wise decision to build a house on top of a hill made of clay. So what is happening is that there is this houses and residencies being built on top of these hills. And surely everybody with an urban planning background, or also people that study geology, say that it's quite dangerous, because then one day these houses for sure will slide. And this is also where Albania is failing to manage investments. Where deforestation is concerned and erosion due to deforestation, it's a phenomenon that has been happening throughout the entire coast of Albania. I still remember being a child, and then in the coast of Durrës, there used to be a lot of pine trees. Because again, we go back in time and think of the fact that Albania is a Mediterranean place. And also the map here can show that this part of Albania, it's quite green, which also symbolizes the fact that there is or has been a lot of biodiversity, or there should be a lot of biodiversity there as well. So along the coast of Durrës, for instance, a lot of pine trees would grow, and the entire coast was covered with it. But now, when the city also began to expand, it suffered from a grave case of deforestation. The people failed to look forward into the future, and also that aspect of gluttony came in, that, oh, hey, you know, like this person's building a building, I'm also going to do a building right next to it. So this sort of profit-making machine of creating more and more buildings, more and more profit, really took over the people. And now the people are actually the ones suffering the consequences of these actions. Because deforestation means that the cities are now more prone to being flooded whenever it rains, because there is no trees. The soil also doesn't have the same composites anymore, so it cannot take the water in whenever it rains. And there is also no soil in a lot of the cases. There is pure cement everywhere. So of course the cities are becoming more prone to floods. And this is something that is purely a cause of human interaction with the environment. The study had also identified as problematics, not only as problematic in terms of floods, but also of marine erosions, the areas of Leja, particularly from the river of Mat and Drin in Leja. And then in Durrës, the regions that can suffer the most are the regions in between Erzeni and Ishmi, due to floods that might also occur in these areas. And then the Vjosa, in the Vlora region, there might be also floods occurring across the Vjosa estuary. So of course, this is a limited explanation of some of the environmental issues that Albania is facing right now, but I really hope that it helps you in understanding the interconnectedness of the country and also of the activities of humans in nature. So in the future videos, I'm also planning to dive on some more researches. So in case you know of any interesting researches, I'd be very, very, very keen to hear from you. And until next time, bye-bye.